What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of epic conversations, and on the host of everybody, it's Dr. Vibe. Okay, we got this going on twice. Hold on here. Dr. Vibe show, the home of epic. We got that. You don't want to hear me twice. I ain't that worthy. All right. The host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of epic conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care, and being part of that team, reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. And you are hanging out with Sadat and brother Kofi and myself at, there we go, Black Men Can Talk, a show where Black Canadian men come together to have real unfiltered conversations about life, culture, and community. Brothers, what is up?
We in the house, family. Peace and blessings. Faith everybody as well, enjoying themselves on this Sunday. It's getting a little chilly in the dark. A little chilly, you know, but we here to bring some heat. We're here to bring some warmth. We're here to bring some love. So looking forward to today's show. Very, very dear topic to myself, brother Paul, you know, for sure. Like, we've been in this space for quite some time, and of course our cherished guests. So we're looking forward to today's conversation.
Good. What's going on, Sadat?
Good evening, everybody. Hey, great to be here, family. Again, this is Sadat from NSA Community. I'm happy to be here, man. You know, to share a warm space with my brothers, because outside is mighty cold.
for the rest of this month. So
yeah, the warm space with my brothers is needed, and for the folks that are listening out there, yeah, we're ready. You know, we're good today, and of course we have a special guest that'll be coming through, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, I'm more than pleased to be here. Good to see you, Kofi. Not on the road. I'm not on the road today.
What's wrong? That's why I screwed up at the beginning a little bit. That's why I'm expecting you guys to be in a car or whatever. You're in a yard. Maybe me. You know how cold it is when these two brothers in their yard.
You know that. You know that. You don't know that, bro. You know
no
that.
Joke. That's facts.
So let me ask you, gentlemen, about a few conversation topics as Tuggs gets comfort in. Have you been in any attention to this whole TikTok controversy? Have you put your head inside any of it?
And you know what? It's not even me, but my youngers, my children, they were having a conversation, or I can't say my children because some are like two young adults, but yeah, they were having that conversation, and it was interesting because, you know, they were going back and forth between themselves around, on one hand, you know, how a lot of folks feel, especially younger folks feel like, you know, this is like a necessary thing, right? Like, it's like water, it's like air, right? That people need it. And if it goes away, you know, how are they going to deal with it, you know, socially? One of my sons was saying how, you know, like, people don't go outside anymore. Like, back in our day, socialization was about going outside. It was meeting at the park, meeting at the basketball court, you know what I mean? Jumping on your bike, going by the creek. But now that folks are, you know, not doing that as much, especially this generation, you know, more time is spent online, and then it's more important to, you know, connect in that particular way. So that's the challenge. And then I think my older son was more like, yo, that's the problem, right? Like, if folks feel they can't survive without it, that actually is the problem, right? Because it's not air, water, you know what I mean, or anything that's directly connected to us actually living. So it was an interesting conversation to be a fly on the wall and just let them have that conversation. But yeah, that's the extent for me.
Yeah, funny enough, I was just listening, you know, before I came up the road here with regards to like Trump's perspective around how this tool could be used. And if people in political positions are seeing the usage of such a form of social media, that it could actually impact their, you know, their whole political campaign, then it shows kind of also the power of this particular tool, right? On the masses of people, if he's saying that, much less its impact on young people. So I think that one of the things I'll take a feather out of the hat of one of our elders that often talks about utilizing the current forms of social media to communicate to our community. What are we doing in terms of using it as a tool of empowerment, of information, of education? Some people use it specifically for those purposes. Some people follow particular accounts that for them provides a certain level of education relative to our community and our causes and the things that are important to us. Other folks use it just for, dance routines and learning a new dish, right? So I think the tool is in the hands of, of the person that decides to wield it for whatever purpose, I feel, right? That's my perspective relative to it. I think it's another tool that can be used in the tool belt for our liberation, if we so decide to. It can also be a tool that's used for our own bondage. We just decide how we use it.
Well, I'll add my 1 cent to this. You mentioned that incoming president who's going to be in there tomorrow, how he flipped about this subject, because 4 or 5 years ago, he said it should be banned, but now, because he's leveraging, especially for his own personal worth and money, it's like it was shut down, but it's back up again in the States. Like, so they're saying, so there was a post on TikTok's platform saying, oh, because we feel that the incoming president's going to give us another life, we've shut it back on again. But apparently is it the Google download area and the Apple download it, you still can't download it. It's still blocked. But it's live, I think, for access. So I think that's really interesting. Another quick conversation topic that's been blowing up from what I've seen online, especially on Instagram today. Snoop Dogg, Nelly, and Killer Mike performing for the president and all his friends this weekend.
Wow.
And it was funny because I saw a number of posts here a number of years ago. Was it back in 2017? Snoop Dogg saying anyone who performed or is aligned with that
Trump
person's name, is not. He really cursed. He said he cursed them out, basically.
Really?
Yes. And now it's like people are saying, holy smokes, this guy was cussing out a few years ago, and now he's performing for this guy and these people.
Mm-hmm. How the tables turn.
That's a heavy topic, and I'm gonna listen. It's a heavy topic, and I think honestly we should get our brother to jump in on this. So we're gonna hold it because I know he got something to say. But for me, I'll start with myself. You know what I mean? Sometimes we gotta show and prove, man. You know what I mean? And our actions and our deeds, it really, allows us to know who we are and other people to know who we are. You know what I mean? So I think, as my mother would say, show me your company and I'll tell you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I think with these brothers, unfortunately, they live in a capitalist society.
Capitalistic. Come on now.
Yeah, man. And they drank the water, bro. Like someone was saying, it's so difficult to not get poisoned when you're swimming in a poison lake. You know what I mean? And I think that's what they're dealing with. And the value,
Mike.
Yeah,
Mike, Mike too, man. They got Mike.
Yep.
No, man. It's the values, bro. It's you know what? It's the value, man. Again, that's it. And that level of, again, who are you? You know what I'm saying? What values are you under? But yeah, man, they're showing who they are, man. But we got a world, we got a world star, Tuggs star coming through.
Well, okay,
so.
We're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a break before we we'll take a break. But so the post on TikTok, going back to that subject, says, welcome back. Thanks for your patience and support. As a result of President Blank's efforts, TikTok is back in the US. You can continue to create, share, and discover all the things you love on TikTok. I wonder how much he got paid for that. And then the whole thing about Snoop Dogg. Oh my gosh. I can't play it because there's a lot of cuss words in it. But if you just probably go online and look at, if you just put in Snoop Dogg on probably any social media platform, enough people are sharing this out. Yeah. Enough people are sharing this out. So that is our appetizer. We got a main course coming up. We got a man who finally, is he back on this side of the ocean? Because man, he was living it up. Yeah, man, I got to ask him how much weight he gained because he was eating out enough. Every time he was going in restaurants, he's laughing. He knows what I'm talking about. He was enjoying some good family and food over on the other side of the ocean. But we're going to take a little bit of break. We'll be back in 30 seconds, and we've got a real great individual that you need to hear from coming up. So we're back in 30 seconds. Black Canadians give their takes, POVs, and insights on local, provincial, national, international conversations. Cesar Nadima Musa. What is up, Cesar?
Hi, Dr. Vibe. Thanks for having me. And it jeopardizes your ability to sustain yourself financially.
40 programs have been suspended due to the drop in revenue.
We see this happening over and over again throughout history.
What does that tell you about America? All right, we're back on Black Men Can Talk with Sadat, Brother Kofi Morris, and myself, Dr. Vibe. And this is a place where Black Canadian men come together to have real unfiltered conversation about life, culture, and community. As always, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also, like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms any of us are on. You can email me, but you got their contact information's coming too. And then want to join a Discord group, email me dr@thedrvibeshow.com. So I'm going to let one of you two introduce our friend today. So who wants to go for it?
Does a young girl want to go, or you want me to do it?
You're in a good position to do so, I think.
All right. So we're definitely honored to bring forth our brother in the real sense, a real brother. This young man, I'll call him, is a community worker, an activist, a rights practitioner, a father, a proud partner. This brother has been doing some great work over the years on anti-Black racism in the community. He both spans from the UK, where he's had lots of experience working with young Black men and boys, as well as being on this side now living in Canada, where he also has continued that remarkable work of developing rites of passage, engagements, real great workshops. You got to check out the N workshop. Hopefully he tells us a little bit about that. But all around, strong brother, proud brother. We want to bring on our brother to the show, Mr. Tuggs.
What's up?
Are you still up?
Good, I'm good, family. How you guys doing?
Good. Are you on UK time or are you on Toronto time right now?
No, I'm on Toronto time now.
Okay.
Why bring some of that food back over to us? You crazy man! You have too much fun over there.
Yeah, you're right. Way too much food. I'm finding myself at the gym right now.
All good. Well, great to have you, brother.
Yeah. Well,
thank you.
I'll just start in. Can you share your journey and what inspired you to work with Black boys on an international level?
Oh wow. That's a great question. It's one of those questions you can answer from many different perspectives. But I know we don't want to be here all night. So
I got time. I don't know about anybody else, but I'll make the time.
There you go.
Okay, so I started doing performance spoken word poetry, which is where Tuggs Star comes from. And during the course of doing that, you always get requested to do workshops at schools, do workshops at youth centers. And I started to get those requests. There was an assumption that if you're good at doing poetry, you can automatically engage Black students or students in general. Wasn't always the case. That's again another practice you got to learn and grow into. Though I had a friend of mine who was part of a rites of passage program, and he asked me to become a mentor of the program, which I did. And I went to the graduation here, you call it initiation, and I was just blown away by the seeing the journey of the young men, and I still don't truly fully understand it till I went away as a volunteer to the retreat. And then when I understood what was happening in the retreat and how these elders were working with these Black boys, I never seen anything like that before. the engagements, the challenges, the expectation, and how they were expected to grow, um, and the vehicle that enabled them to teach these young black boys from all over London. They were now given a framework whereby they can now inject an understanding of African history, African culture, um, test their character, develop their character, push it to the limit, engage with elders in the community. I just never seen that before, and after working. Um, After just working from being a volunteer, I was just fully in. I always said I don't think rites of passage is an answer. I believed, and I still believe it is the answer, in being able to understand the principles of African society and African history, and to be able to understand it in the context of the box that we're working with, whether it be UK, US, or Canada, but to be able to infuse an understanding of who you are, what are you all about, and what is your purpose of being here. Yeah, so that really inspired me. I learned so much from the elder brothers that were on that were part of the process, that it really just inspired me to want to do more work with black boys. So I went from there to working in schools, working as part of the community, um, and then coming to Canada and doing some of the similar work. That is his own journey. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's why I wanted to work with black
Nice, nice, gentlemen. I can go on. I got questions, but keep on going.
boys.
Sorry, I was muted. So brother Tuggs,
Go ahead.
for many of us who have not, well, some of us have not traveled to the UK, so obviously, we may not be as familiar with some of the dynamics. So can you maybe share some of the challenges that young black boys or young black men in the UK were experiencing when you were working with them? Like what kind of things um, were they experiencing?
Um, okay, before I answer that, one thing I should say, and I'll probably best to be able to give the comparison, is how similar the two societies are with regards to the black community. Now, there was a level of ignorance that I had with regards to the black Canadian dynamic when I first came over in 1990. Six. The first time I came, but I was in Ottawa, and then afterwards I came and spent a year in Toronto in the year 2000, and it must have been about 4 or 5 months in to being here. I realized, and I was kind of bored of being in Toronto, and I was just like, why? This is a whole new country. Why am I bored? And I remember walking down Queen Street, and then all of a sudden it dawned upon me that this place and society was just so familiar to London. So it felt like I jumped on a plane, traveled 8 hours, and didn't really go anywhere. So the people that I met reminded me of the people in the UK. Then when I started analyzing the society, like when I first came, the assumption was that Canada is similar to America without the violence, without as much violence. Um, After being here for a while and getting to know the people, there was very little translation that needed to be done with regards to how I spoke and my reference points, the archetypes of individuals. They were like direct. It almost sometimes feels I'm in a parallel in a parallel life as opposed to a different country, a different space. And then when I started analyzing a little bit more, there's the legacy of the fact that Canada was essentially founded by British and French, right? So the closest country to UK is France. So therefore, there's always going to be that shared history between UK and France, as is this a shared landmass between people that descend from France and people that descend from Britain. So therefore, this was essentially a British colony. So the way that the society was structured was based identically towards to Britain. When you look at the state of the immigration um, in of the black mass immigration following the Second World War, the Caribbeans were the Black Caribbeans were the first of the immigrants to land in the United Kingdom as an invitation from the British government to help rebuild Britain after World War II. So the Caribbeans came over. It was Jamaicans, Trinidadians, Guyanese, St. Vincent's and Kitts. All of those countries, of those nations, ended up coming over to the UK. Um, this was in late 40s, early 50s. So 10 years later, Pierre Trudeau did the same thing where he invited Caribbean folks to Canada in order to set up. So therefore, we've got similar societies that are taking place. Africans started coming to the UK en masse probably about 10 years after the Caribbean started to come in. And then you probably find that there was a similar type of timeline after the Caribbeans came over. West Africans were probably the next mass immigration of folks that came from the African continent to Toronto and Canada. So what we have is essentially the same group of people who are now branches on a tree who are growing up in different places. And it's kind of, I found it astounding the level of communication and collaboration of the two societies when it comes to Black progress was very, very little and very, very limited. I think it's probably a little bit more now, but it's still not as much as it could be and it should be, considering there's so much that is shared both culturally, politically, and socially.
I just want to interject. If anyone's watching live on the Dr. Vibe YouTube channel, I've just put up a poll, and the poll is, are you concerned about the future for Black boys? So you have a choice of yes, no, or uncertain. So if you're watching on my YouTube channel right now live, I'd encourage you. We'd love to get some interaction, but also ask Tuggs lots of questions. Kofi, you haven't said anything yet. If you don't, I'm going to. So you better get in. Can't hear you.
No, feel free, Dr. White, feel free to jump in. You don't know I have questions, so you go.
Okay, so then, just building on what you shared, Tuggs, what are the common challenges that Black boys face, regardless of geography, and how do these challenges differ in various cultural or societal contexts?
Okay, so you have the fact that there's the growing up in low income households that is expanded by the low economic vibrancy of the communities that they're from. There is the issues with the educational system, the lack of inclusion in the curriculum of not just Black history, but understanding life from a Black perspective. That is a major a gap within Black British society. There is the one thing that British society does do, which I think is the major difference in how that happens in Canada, is that there is an understanding. I think it was something in Toronto, I should say. I won't say the whole of Canada. Less now in Toronto, whereby there's an understanding of Britishness and what Britishness is. And in order to be Britishness, there's an expectation that one needs to disregard their culture in which they come from. So therefore, you are British, and therefore you cannot claim an allegiance, alliance, or cultural connection to your parents or grandparents' homeland. You now have to accept the standards of what it means to be British, and from a Black perspective, that really means a white British. Um, Whereas here I found in Toronto, there is, especially over the last 10 years, there's been a strong advocate of trying to understand and embrace the culture as well as the people and the person overtly from an overt perspective. So what that did as a result was that it was very much a challenge in Britain for Black organizations that would openly speak about African history and African culture, and Black history and Black culture to progress. So as a result, the volunteer sector was where you'd get a lot of the great work that was being done from a Black perspective, and it was and the public sector grants and financial support was not given to organizations and organizations and groups that were openly proud to be Black as well. And this came as a result of many of the conflicts that happened in the 70s and 80s. So when the first generation of Caribbean folks specifically were being born in Britain and they were exed out of the society, and as a result, there was an increase in unemployment. There was an increase in disenfranchisement. There was more anger. There was also the influence of Rastafari, which really were the forefront of making Black folks a little bit more politically conscious as well. So in the 80s, there was more so an embrace of we need to find ways to make these Black British folks who are rioting and causing such a dissension in British culture. How do we make them part of the society? So as a result, there were um, forward-thinking politicians who did have bonds with progressive Black leadership. So as a result, it was able to get Black organizations being funded, etc. Now, what happened there was because there was now the influence of consciousness, there was the influence of political activity, there was the influence of all of these Black sector workers that were working in the youth clubs, that were working as political agitators. You also had a lot of the politically, you had the South Africa apartheid, which is on the radar as well, which was really fueling the activism. Um, you had the influence of reggae culture. So all of this was playing a massive impact on Black youth at the time in the 80s. So the political establishment, when it changed from Labour, which had the history of being very much supportive of social and the new immigrants that are coming over, you had to switch to conservatives. So you had Margaret Thatcher. So this is like a history lesson now. But Margaret Thatcher now come into play. She was the first woman prime minister, but she was very much the equivalent of what a Republican is in the United States, and obviously you've got the conservatives here in in Canada. But they were very much wary of the politicization of what was happening to Black youth. And as a result, it became a changing of guard, so to speak. So a lot of the Black activists that were in positions of influence were slowly edged out and replaced with folks who were Black on the inside, but didn't necessarily have the Black politics. So I grew up. Um, in the era whereby there really wasn't a lot of engagement with Black youth. And when I found a lot of these youth workers, they were working from a volunteer perspective, and they were teaching the Black youth from a voluntary perspective. So when I found them in the 90s, I had to understand the history of what happened to that class of Black youth workers who, in the 70s and early 80s, were engaging Black youth from a Black perspective, to the fact that there were folks that were in positions, but they weren't necessarily engaging from a culturally relevant perspective. These were now folks that were started up independent organizations, independent movements, and were really engaging folks from a voluntary perspective, with the understanding that we can't depend upon government to assist us.
Good. Gentlemen, don't let me do this.
No.
Really? You guys got you. Well, maybe because I don't see Tuggs as much as you do.
A couple things. Blessed family, once again, greetings, welcome to the show. We've been speaking about bringing you on for a minute, so we're thankful that you're with us tonight. And again, speaking about this amazing journey called Rites of Passage.
Let's go deep, fam. Let's go deep. I'm here, man. Let's dig it.
So one of the things that come to mind, the funny thing is that my introduction to Tuggs was actually him behind the mic dropping some lyrics, right? And my thing that I was just gonna, kind of pull out is the impact of Black youth understanding that their voice means something, and essentially connecting personal identity to rites of passage? Like, what are some of the things you've actually worked with young sisters, you work with young brothers, you had experiences on both sides? What do you see as, the impact and the importance of young people having a voice, and how does rights support that?
Mm, okay. So, I mean, rights have been fundamental in being able to uh, um, have young people find their voice, right? I find that when we reach a young person for the first time, we come through a rites of passage. The first experience is, what is this? My mum or my dad have told me I have to come on this process, and I don't really want to be part of this process, right? These are old black men. Um, this is when I was from the UK. So when it was from the UK, it was very much a black men working with black boys. So yeah, so the first session was always them not wanting to be there. Now what you understand is that from the age of when young boys are put into the school system, they're now going through their own journey. At first, they're from the first 6 years of their life, they're in the cocoon of having all of the influence from family, parents, family, community, and close neighborhood, the environment that they're in, which is essentially been guarded. Now they are in the school system and being opened up to a whole new world and being educated by someone that's principally not connected or related to the family that they're from. So between the age of 6 of 13, they're going through an element of being completely reprogrammed, and oftentimes it's not to the benefit of their community. And now, by the time they get to the age of 13, there's potential tensions. There's emotional tensions. There's character tensions that are in the home, and now the parent, and especially if they're coming from a single parent household, it's a question of um the child now needs to find their tribe, and oftentimes the tribe that they're finding may not have been signed off or being agreeable to the parent or parents, and now they're like, we need something for these boys. Let's find a program that has black men working with black boys, and let's give the child to that program. So now we now have to understand the fact that the young men have now a different program that they have written on their personality, and that is oftentimes at odds with the family that they're from. There is a experience in school which is oftentimes not productive to who they are as their children. So when we meet them as facilitators, as community workers now working with the young child, there's an element of a dance that we now have to do, which is number one, earning their trust, number one, engaging them, number two, engaging them, number three, recognizing that we're not your parent, but we are someone that cares for you, and we're able to include the cool factor, as well as the guide factor as well. So now we've got to break through all of that in order to get to the young person. And once we get to the young person, to connect with the young person, is now trying to pull out who it is that they are, and therefore create conditions whereby they can be comfortable expressing the best of who they are, and then we can help guide them through their process of bringing out the best of what's within them.
All right, I'm just going to jump in. There's a few quick comments here. Frequency of Air Promotion says, greetings to that, Kofi, Tugstar, and Dr. Vibe. He has a humble request, and if time permits, can we have Tugstar render a spoken word piece? Boy Wonder says Yaga, and Naza Community says, welcome, Boy Wonder. All right. Paul and Kofi. Paul,
Yeah,
like I said.
I definitely I got a question around, obviously, we're in the last month or so, here in Toronto. I know you've been away, but here in Toronto, it still was something around the crisis of missing Black boys. And we've seen a lot of community conversations, a lot of social media, a lot of folks that have been, concerned openly around this unfortunate issue. So one of the things I'm pushing is how do we keep Black boys at home and in community, right? Because and when they return, how do we keep them here as well? But basically, what advice would you have around how to engage young Black boys to make them feel welcome, and again to make them feel valued in our community or in homes, right? Like what kind of advice would you have around making them feel valued according to your experience working with young Black boys?
I'm hoping we can get into a discussion, man, because this is a big question. It's a loaded question as well, and I don't think there's an easy necessary answer to it. Now, yes, while I was away, I did see the post, and on Thursday, I went to one of the community discussions, that was about it. Where are these black boys going? What's necessarily happening to them, etc. And then it was revealed that a large majority of the black boys have now gone home, right? But now the question is, where were they, and why were they where they were, right? Now, it's an interesting thing when you say, how do we keep black boys in the home? Uh, um, when I was young, I didn't want to be at home. Not that I ran away, but it's like see, when you do rites of passage, it's something that connects to the nature of who we are, right? And when you reach the age of 13, that young man now, especially when it's a young man or a young boy growing to be a man, he's got an energy about that person, right? There's a warrior element to a lot of boys that oftentimes is not exercised, and oftentimes that young boy needs a cover, needs a group, it needs to be validated, and they go through their journey that usually starts at the age of 13, and you can't keep that energy locked up inside the home. You can't.
Mhm.
It needs to express
Agreed.
itself.
Agreed.
Now, what now happens, and it's a cultural thing, in the sense that we have come to these countries, whether it be UK, whether it be Britain, or whatnot, and there has been an expectation. There's been an expectation for these countries that they're in to be able to bring out the best of our young boys in this regard. Um, Generationally, that has not been the case. When you look at the statistics of what happens to the black community, in this case, black boys, with regards to the level of high dropout rates, which mirrors in the UK and in Canada, they mirror each other. Um, the concern with mental health mirroring each other, the disproportionate level of incarceration both mirrors each other. All of these are warning signs. All of these are levels of concern that we need to be at, and it's also a recognition that maybe the general society is not able to provide the answers that needs to happen when we cast to what happens to black boys. Now, to turn the question back on ourselves, it's like, what are we seeing in community? What gaps are we seeing in community, that is now impacting and affecting the black boys? We always talk about the lack of the community centers. Yeah, that's definitely one of them. But then there's the question of what type of engagement is going to be happening from with these black boys from these community centers. So it's now becomes for me a cultural analysis about what are the things that we need to be doing more so as a community to engage the black boys, so that the black boys now have a place to go, and through the places that they go and they visit, they're given a sense of purpose. They're given a sense of, this is who I am, this is what's expected of me, and this is what I now must do to be able to benefit the community in which I come from, whether it's the community or culture from the perspective of you being a Black Canadian, a Black Canadian from the Caribbean, a Black Canadian from the African diaspora, or the African continent. And not only just from the African continent, the specific groups that I'm from. All of this is what a person is looking for. Every person told at some stage ask, "Who am I?" And that question gets answered by the environment that they're in. And if that environment is a negative one, then they become that negative element, right? And if that environment is a positive element, then they'll become that positive element. When I went through the quest of who I am, I went looking. I had because my parents weren't able to answer the question of how I navigate the society that I was in. Luckily, I was so influenced by hip hop, and the culture of hip hop at that time was heavily politicized, heavily conscious, and heavily speaking and trying to answer the question of who are you as a young black male. So I went through my own quest trying to find an environment that could help affirm who I am. Now, that still happens. The young people are still looking for that. They're just now giving different answers than the ones that I was given when I was young. And that different answers may not bring out the best of who they are, and it may create more problems. So as a result, we end up dealing with the problems and never dealing with the core of how we now reshape or navigate that quest that the young people are on.
Right.
I want to jump
Go
in
ahead,
here.
go, Dr. Vibes. Go.
Yeah. How does systemic racism, stereotypes, and societal expectations impact the development and self-esteem of Black boys?
It impacts black boys specifically when there is no counter to it, right? So
Mhm.
if they're in a racist society, right, and the system has confessed that it is a racist society based upon the statistics and the data that gets released, we recognize we're living in a racist society. Now, when we open the door as parents and have our children leave our homes and enter in their world, what we're doing is that we're sending them into a racist society overtly and subconsciously racist society. So they're picking up these influences throughout their whole entire day. Now, they may not overtly have ever discussed it, but once you go to a school and you ask young people about their experience with racism, they start talking about the microaggressions. They may not have the language for it. They start talking about
Mhm.
microaggression. They start talking about the perspective of teachers, the perspective of their students. They're picking up racism. They're in the racist world. And when you
Mhm.
now ask them about elements of Black history, they have no idea. Many of them don't even realize that they descend from enslaved Africans. They have no idea. So they're totally unprepared for the reality of the world that they're facing. And so systemic racism, for those that know as elders, we recognize systemic racism as a fact. And the reality is the young people have not been given their armor to navigate the racist society world. So they're literally let lambs to the slaughter because there's a desire to have our young people excel, to get on and not have racism be something that they carry on over their shoulders. And in doing that, I feel that we haven't done our young folks the giving them the protection that they need. So they're going to find a way to be able to manage that, and they may find their way without being informed. Like if we look at the example of this just came to me, but if we look at the example of the United States, the reason why the Crips were formed was because they didn't have the political guidance and mentorship of the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers were dealing with were dealing with the system in an overt, violent way. And at the time, the Black Panthers said, we can't be having young people part of this movement anymore. It was way too dangerous. So the young people at the time would decided, well, we want to emulate what the elders did, so they formed their own little groups, CRIPS, CRIPS, Community Revolution in Progress. So they had the understanding that we're supposed to
Say
be
that again, brother. What's it stand for? So people hear what
CRIPS,
CRIP stands
Community
for.
Revolution in Progress, right?
All
So
right.
it was like we want to be able to emulate what our elders and the Panthers did, but we don't have that politically savvy and that education. So and they ended up just becoming bullies on the block, as opposed to this group that are going to have the political understanding, mentorship, and guidance from their elders. So the way they expressed their youthness was through violence, as opposed to that direction of that political energy and the understanding of their history and culture, which gave the Panthers a foundation of this is now what the foundation of this is how we now impact the community because we recognize there's a stronger purpose. Now take that purpose away, you just get some bullies on the block that want to do something political, but they don't have that mentorship or that guidance in order to do that.
Boy Wanda has a question. What is this rites of passage thing? And why is it important for our community? So I think you're probably the best person to answer that, Tuggs.
I don't think I'm the best person to answer that. I think
Well,
there's
out of this
best
here.
people on this platform. So, so rites of passage. It's an ancient practice. It's an ancient practice. So rites of passage, to strip it down, it is a process that allows boys to become men guided by elder men of the community. So, same thing happens with other genders, where it'll be girls coming to women, etc. It is essentially a process that gives the young person a foundation of who they are, where their background is, what is their journey of their people, what is the current environment that they're now currently in, and how do they successfully navigate it, at the same time having the guidance and protection of the elders of the community, who are given the responsibility of guiding them through that process as well.
Okay, thank you for that. So we often talk about how language can shape the way you think, and that in particular with our young people, the words that they use hold power. I know you do some work around the N-word workshop, right? And of course, the N-word is the igger word, right? We're not trying to get banned out here on these social medias, but can you explain to folks who are not familiar the N-word kind of workshop and kind of the rationale behind that?
Yeah. Okay. So the so I just said before, I'm a poet, so I always appreciate the strength and the power of words. And one thing I found really interesting over the years was this the expectation that if you're black, then you sign up to using the N word, right? And what I realized was is that people were using it and didn't have the understanding of what it actually is, where it comes from. They couldn't really define what it was. So I decided to come up with a workshop that was able to guide young people on a process of understanding what the N word is, understand its history, and then not really tell them whether they should or shouldn't use it, but at the end, just give them the information, and then at the end ask them the question whether they feel it's something that it's wise or sensible to use, right? And I recognize that I went through my own journey with it, and this generation, and again, history is my favorite subject. So when I looked at things from a historical perspective, there was a time, to quote Talib Kweli. He had a fantastic song. It's called Four Women, which is a rendition of Nina Simone's Four Women. So he hip hopified it. And in it, he says, we went from the N word to Negro to colored to black to Afro to African American, right back to the N word. And that cycle of life was amazing. So now we're back to using the N word, but we're using it without understanding the historical context. So I wanted to provide an entertaining, not a dry workshop, but somewhat of an entertaining workshop that expresses and that provides the history and background to the N word. And then I did a part two as well, which talks about hip hop and the N word, because there's always the argument that the A makes it a different word than the ER, and the A means my friend. So I said, well, let's do a whole analysis on hip hop and the N word, and let's express that as well. I think my generation went through. We asked the question. We asked the question: should we or shouldn't we? I distinctly remember speaking to a man at the time who was like a mentor to me. Um, and I was like, yeah, Tupac said we should use it. Tupac says N-word means never ignorant in getting goals accomplished. So yeah, I think we should use it. And he just asked me, well, why don't you use something else? And I was trying to defend the N-word. He goes, yeah, but if you've got so much you've got so much power to be able to select a word, why use that word? Why not use someone else? So I thought that was an interesting point. So that really arrested my promotion um Tupac's argument. But I think we went through a period whereby it was a debate and a discussion, and that was in the ether as well. Some rappers used it, some rappers didn't. But then when you look at this generation in connecting my generation to this generation, that argument was lost because this generation now have no understanding that there was actually one point where there was a discussion. And at least that discussion, you can at least understand both points and come to your own decision. Like I always say, just because I have there's people smarter than me that advocate using the word. I've heard Mark Lamont Hill and Michael Eric Dyson advocate to using the word. Like these folks are smarter than me. I just come up with a different conclusion based upon understanding the same similar information.
Shay, thank you very much for that, brother. Looking forward. So, again, I know you just put it up there, Dr. Vibe. But if anybody's trying to, connect with our brother Tuggs Star, more interested and want to learn about this workshop, part 1 and 2, please hit
Well,
him up.
listen. Let me say, I'm actually trying. I'm actually engaging in conversations at the moment with C to be able to do it for Black History Month. So I really want to do that
All right.
that workshop for Black History Month. So
All right. Well, let us
yeah,
know.
hopefully
Let us know.
by the
Keep
next
us
week
in
I'll
the
have
loop,
something.
bro. Keep us in
Yeah.
the loop.
I want to ask, how can parents, educators, and mentors help Black boys develop emotional intelligence and resilience?
Have conversations, I think, is the first step. Um, I think the hardest thing to bypass as a parent with the stresses of just surviving is like actually having time just to sit down and carve out time just to speak to your children about what is happening in their world, what's going on in their world. Um, and to provide an environment where they feel comfortable in talking. I know I find it challenging because you're just working on the responsibilities of the home, the responsibilities of your work, and and the desire to as well just want to recharge your batteries and just to stay still and chill. But there is an importance to be able to carve out that part for your children to really find out what's in their head, what's going on in their world. And one thing that I found beneficial is opening up your home for not just your family, but also their friends, for their friends just to come over, and you can see how they operate within their own tribe, right? And you can eavesdrop, you can really get a sense of who they are because they morph when they're around different people.
They're in your
So you
home.
really get, yeah. But you're in your home, and they get, and the your friends or your children's friends get an understanding of who you are as well, and that increases the respect factor of them as well as understanding who is it that's influencing my child.
Shay. So talking about your home, I know, obviously a lot of our conversation is focused on supporting young Black boys, but I know recently you helped to facilitate a rites of passage process with young women, right? What was that
Mhm.
experience like as a Black man to lead that process?
Uh, um, it was great, and I want to say I led the process per se. That I really wanted to that I initiated the process.
Yeah.
One of the things I recognized when my daughter was coming of age was that it was clear that she was getting a lot of influence from the school, and the school and the school friends, and exactly what I talked about. Like I'm I'm a victim of what I spoke about, in the sense that I could see that my daughter was more so a daughter of the school system as opposed to a daughter of my values and my history and my culture. So I could see all of that it was escaping me, and I felt it was a need to arrest that pretty soon. So what I did was that we invited some of the people who are close to my daughter and their parents to the home for a Kwanzaa gathering, and then I proposed the rites of passage process. And I was like, how could I be part of such a phenomenal rites of passage process that I've seen have such great impact on black men and black women, um, and not use that for my own child. So I did pitch the year template, and all of the parents, bar none, were fully in. So we began the process with them, and it was just amazing. And I needed to lean on the black women, my wife and her circle, who'd already done their own rites of passage, some as adults, and to be able to lean on them to engage with the girls that were going through their own process. So it was phenomenal. And again, the one thing you always say, Paul, just trust the process, and yeah, at the end of the process, I could fully say this was my child, like
Mm.
my child, who now understood who she was in the context of the school that she was in, the friends that she has, and the culture that she was now engaging with. She understood who she was within that context. So that element of clarity within herself was extremely important.
Okay. Got a comment here from Frequency Event Promotions. The young men of today are living in a time where access to information is all at their fingertips. Do we know of any projects or programs that are assisting young people in securing careers versus jobs? I guess that's open to all of us, I guess, not just Tuggs. Anyone?
I think there's a lot. I would say there are a lot of things I'm seeing, that are out there in terms of that focus on careers versus jobs. I've seen a lot of that energy, but I also want to challenge that as well, because what I find with my engagements, my limited engagement of working with young people, is that a lot of them are entrepreneurial, right? Or the workforce has shifted where, let's say you're working in tech and you're more negotiating your skills with a quote unquote employer, right? So I think that to prepare our young people, and I will say, I'm going to go even say specifically our young boys for this new world, I encourage people to master what you want and then teach what you know, right? Because let's just say some of the same experiences that Tuggs might have been referring to, they could be in the school, they could be in the workplace. We know that, racism is very systemic in all the sectors that we look like. And then we look at, our Black boys specifically, they're usually on the worst end of all that. However, sometimes a level playing field is if you're working for yourself. So that job that you can't get at the mall because, you look like whatever, or you come from a particular neighborhood as a young Black man or a young Black woman, I would say as well. If you're working for yourself and developing your talents and doing your thing, then you kind of, reduce some of that impact when it comes to, that part of racism. But also, you've got to be prepared to, to be entrepreneurial in any way to really to get ahead. You know what I mean? So I think that, there's been a lot of work on careers and jobs, and I'm gonna say, like that's for some people, but I think there's definitely a segment of our population, and in particular, let's say it's a young person that may have been in contact with the criminal justice system, or a young person that's a new immigrant, right, that cannot access traditional work, right? But many of them are brilliant. I've seen, for example, Boy Wonder, I'm going to give it up to you. He put on a conference recently for that to address a lot of the young African immigrants that are coming to Toronto. And one of the things I loved about the conference, just a little thing, is that there was a gentleman, a black man, that was he films it. He does, like, the streaming and all that kind of stuff. And they approached him and said, "Hey, we have some folks here. Obviously, they can't access the work field because they don't have their work permits or whatever the case is. But would you take on this young person who has the skills? They know how to do a camera work or whatnot." And right there in the conference, that person had an opportunity. And you know what I mean? So I said, sometimes we have to look at what else is out there, right? Because not everybody's going to do the 9 to 5. Not everybody's going to do that. And in fact, some of us, most of us in this conversation right now are not 9 to 5ers, right? So I just wanted to add that piece.
All right, it's good. Anyone else want to add?
Yeah, for myself, I'm really, really worried and concerned for the next generation of black boys, black community in general. Like the world is shifting so fast, and one of the things that I put my head in now is understanding some of the shifts of what's happening in society and how society, as we speak, is morphing itself to become a different society, a completely different environment in the next 10 years. Now, I remember when Andrew Yang ran for presidency. He was really an innovative way or presidential proposal he was putting out that I think a lot of people should have paid a lot more attention to. And one of the things he said when he went onto the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God, he said, "Did you guys see the Guardian article?" The Guardian article said that the mean household income of the black family in the next 10 or 20 years is going to be zero. It said zero. Because when you look at the advancements that is happening with AI, it's going to go through the working communities like a hurricane and tornado. And the service sector of jobs, which is where a large percentage of black jobs are, is going to be completely wiped out. Now, this was what was it, 7, 8 years ago, about 8 years ago now, and we're now living in the age that he talked about, and it's only going to get more more serious. And it's like when you look at the advancement of tech, when you look at the advancement of crypto, when you look at the advancement of AI, this is not being translated en masse to the to our black working class generation, so they can benefit on these changes that are happening. One commentator said that in the next 10 years, it's going to be the equivalent of 100 years advancement in the societies. That's what's going to happen in the next 10 years. So, so from 1900 to the year 2000, where you had in the 1900s, we were just coming from horse and carriage to cars, yeah, to speed cars, from traveling on boats to get from one country to the next, to 2000 traveling on uh, um, uh, uh, high high speed airplanes. Like that level of development and changes is going to happen in a space of 10 years, and we're actually in the 10 years. It may be 9 years now, because I heard this in 2024. And my whole thing is that when we go to the schools, we're still learning in the same type of ways, right? And we're still engaging in the same type of way, that the kids are bored bored of. And I just feel it's hard putting that responsibility on the school. I know we always do. We put it on the school, we put it on the school board, we put it on the teachers, and that doesn't and that system never changes. And it's like, what is now the responsibilities for us in position who know, who are elders, who understand the changes coming? How are we now communicating that to now the black youth, so that those black youth who are disappearing and doing whatever they are they're doing to get ahead of life, and are given a instruction pad and instruction manual to let you know that no, there's a history and culture that you've come from, and you are now the answer. You are now the answer to what the prayers of our previous generations are, and we now need you to be in these type of industries and to connect it to what your desires and gifts and the talents are. Because when you look at the advance of hip hop, what you're really looking at is young men and women who are ages 14, 15, 16, and upwards, who were geniuses, untapped geniuses in what they did. Like, you have individuals who are working with technology in order to find new ways of using technology in a way that the person who invented a speaker or a record player, they were now finding ways to do things that the initial inventors had no idea could be done. And they were hacking and finding ways of doing it without a college degree, without a doctorate, but they were doing things that were college degree level and doctorate levels. They were finding wires, connecting wires, they were putting turntables together and creating music that now are multi-million-dollar industries that were done by low income people in the hood. Now, these type of dormant geniuses, they're still around. They're still in Toronto. They're still in the GTA. They're still in London. They're all over the place. They're just not being harnessed, and it's the inability to harness that talent, which is a major concern for me. Looking forward to the next generation.
I want to respect your time, Tuggs. How much time do you have? Because I know you wanted to go deep, but I don't know if we can go deep with the amount of time you may have, and we probably will need to do a part 2, but just want to know how you are with time right now.
I'm good, brother. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. I want to continue on, but just some things. NASA said for resources for Black youth jobs, Gerard has been doing it for a long time.
Gerard Mead is my man.
Yeah.
Gerard Mead, I tip my hat off. That brother is dedicated. He's one of the real ones, 100%.
There you go. And the Frequency of Empire says, in my opinion, the 21st century is here and is growing like wildfire. Youth work has shifted as well. Entrepreneurship is now default. Continued, but I feel we need to cascade, peel back youth work, education, workforce. And also says, in the interim, the streets are advocating exponentially luring in our Black men. That I agree. Definitely, they're luring in our Black men.
I just want to say something about that, right? I remember one of my mentors, right? He was Elder Pablo. He was the same questions that we're wrestling with. He was wrestling with then, and one of the young men said, "Listen, bruh, like, I come from the single parent a household. I'm expected to earn money, bruh. If you can let me know how I can earn £500 a month, I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll do whatever you want me to do." Yeah, like, they're trying to answer. They're trying to find answers to the questions themselves. And if us as elders can't provide them their answers to their questions, they're going to find it. If they're going to school and school is not speaking to them, like, every parent needs to go and see how is my child actually doing in school. Because oftentimes when I go go into the schools, kids are just a lot of kids, not all of them. A lot of kids are just there, just have no engagement whatsoever. They're literally just letting the days go by and they're not advancing in what they need to know in order to progress in society. And the distraction of the phones is completely next level. Completely next level. I mean, to be fair, some people have hacked it and they found ways in order to be successful and entrepreneurial and live through social media, which is connected to their phones. All respect to them. Too often, folks are just using it as some type of thing just to watch videos and to laugh at people, and they're not getting that the productivity in order to excel themselves. And when life is just passing you by, and all of a sudden you graduate, and all of a sudden you're 18, of course you're going to be attracted to anyone that says, "Yo, I know how to get a few more peas or a few more dollars in your pocket." Of course, that's the way. Now, the person who's providing that offer needs to be able to provide. Needs to be someone that can provide that same offer. It's not going to get them in prison or get them dead.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, so then how can we develop, how can we help Black boys develop a strong sense of identity and self-worth in a world that often devalues them?
I mean, listen, I said I think at the beginning when I talked about the importance of rites of passage, I'll be honest. Like in my humble opinion, the rites of passage needs to be something that is systematically employed to all Black people. All people of African descent, regardless of age, need to go through a rites of passage because it's something that becomes systemized and it becomes a ritual part of your culture. So we don't have to go into something whereby we have to get into argument and debate and discussion. Is it good? Is it not good? I said my kids today, what are they going to be learning? Like all of that just needs to be completely eliminated. And to be honest, we haven't. I don't believe we've got the time to even faff about with oh should we or shouldn't we? I believe it is the answer. And I think it needs to be presented to our community um from different levels as the answer because I don't think we've just got that time to play about anymore. And I think that there needs to be an analysis, a deep analysis of the society, the social structures, because any other community that had the type of statistics and data that we have in the Black community will be considered a state of emergency. And it's been a state of emergency for a long while now, right? And the statistics are only getting worse.
So I kind of want to circle back, and this is for everybody on the panel. I know brother Kofi, what we call a home run hitter, has been kind of silent and taking it in. So I'm appreciate that. But I want to circle back to, you know, what folks are saying about, you know, the luring of, you know, our Black boys, and because, you know, obviously people are offering them money for risk. But what role do we play, or can we play, in providing, you know, jobs, opportunities for our young people, young Black people? Like, what role as Black men do we play in doing that? You know what I mean? Like, in actually getting them to the place where we can, like you said, the brother said to Elder Pablo, if you can, you know, find me an alternate to actually doing this thing, like making money or surviving or feeding my family, because it's not like all about, you know, vanity like a lot of people think. Sometimes it's young people who have to contribute to their households on a real level. You know what I mean? That a lot of us don't have to do. But, you know, what role can we play as Black men, you know, to support our young Black people economically? I put it out to everybody here.
So one of the things I'll hop
Go
in
ahead.
real quick.
Go ahead, home run hitter.
A couple quick things come to mind. You know, one of the things I found out, and I'm sure the brothers can probably echo this, when you speak to, because we're all entrenched and connected to community, when you speak with brothers who are not necessarily connected to community, they often think to themselves, what can I do? Right? They often, like, that's the question they're asking, or they feel as though they don't have a certain type of credential, they don't have a certain background that could impact the life of a young man. But the thing that they don't realize oftentimes is that your experience means something to a younger Black man. Why? Is because he's looking to you, because you're supposed to be somewhere that he hasn't been yet. You know, if you're going on a journey and you're walking this journey, and you've been on a journey for some time, and you meet somebody else who's just starting. It's almost like saying you have nothing that you can explain to this young man that's about to go on this journey that you've just been on. And you're coming with scrapes and bruises, you know what I'm saying? But you're also coming with accolades and, you know, whatever. So it's like thinking that they don't have something to pass on. I think oftentimes our role is to empower those brothers, to explain to them that there are things that you have within you based upon your own personal experience that a young man can gain from, but it's just to create the space and the time. And sometimes it's just literally going to that, going to wherever they are, right? Whether the experiences that they're having, and bouncing that ball with them. You know what I mean? Playing, you know what I mean? Being in spaces that they are already. Some parents would talk about, you know, going into the child's room, and if they're playing video games or they're doing their homework, whatever the case may be, just being present. I know there's a lot of fathers that are in homes, and a lot of us can attest to this, that were in homes, but the fathers weren't present in the home, right? They were there, they were physically there, but you couldn't say, what is your son doing up in his room? What is he doing? What is his passion? What is his drive? Where is his goal? What are the things that are important to him? They can't answer those questions because they're so caught up in their own lives, not recognizing just having presence sometimes is when the young man can now feel, let me ask a question. I've been talking to this girl, and, you know, and I don't know how to approach her, and I don't, you know, like, should I introduce myself to her family? Like, what they're asking these questions internally, not realizing that you could be a source of strength, you could be a source of knowledge, you could be a source of experience, you could be a source of just a listening ear for another young man. So I think some of the times we need to empower ourselves in recognizing that we have something to offer, regardless of our educational background, regardless of a lot of those things that we're thinking are the defining factor for the young man that just doesn't have someone present in his life that looks like him, has been through a similar experience as him, and can echo some things back to him. So I think that's one of the things we need to recognize is our own lived experience often informs the work of rites of passage, for example, with young men. And the reality is there's a lot of wisdom out there that can be accessed, but the young man doesn't know where to access it. So making ourselves available, going, like I said, connecting to initiatives like our initiative, connecting to our Black organizations. There's a brother named Keedy that has spoken in Toronto before, and he's often said, you know, if you're not part of an organization, then you're probably part of this organization, right? So connect to something that's present, that's happening in community. I saw a call from mentors, I think just a couple like this past week from the BBPA, right? From the Black Business and Professional Association. So there are initiatives that are looking for mentors and guides and people that can support young Black men. However, being visible to community, knowing where to go and how to connect, right? And being able to be present and available. I think some of those things that we need to kind of go back to and recognize. We have so much power and knowledge, wisdom, and experience and information in our community. It's just to bridge the gaps and make the connections.
See, this is why you're in the bullpen. So when you come out of the bullpen, you come with a sledgehammer, eh? You knock six. You knock six. You knock six, right? You come off the bench. I'll just add quickly, because I know it's a great conversation topic. Love what you said, Brother Kofi, because too many of us don't think we have value. And we have to look at it that we don't look at what you don't have. What you have is good enough. And also the lived experience is so important. You don't need to have a degree to be of service to a young Black boy. Your lived experience is more than enough. And also another organization that's looking for Black men to get engaged with young Black boys, Big Brothers Big Sister Toronto, which is run by Station Frederick, has a call out. They have about 150 Black youth that are looking for mentorship, and it's not a big requirement every month, and the majority of those looking for help are young Black boys. So if you don't know where you can serve and you're afraid to go into these organizations, contact any of the people on the screen. We will direct you to the right organizations, because as Tuggs said, we're in a critical situation right now. We're in a very, very critical. Yeah, you see stuff on the news. If you spoke to us individually, we could give even scarier stories All you're seeing in the major media is the clips. There's other stuff going on that you probably don't know that's going on, that you can be part of the U-turn. I'll leave it to Kofi and Tuggs if they want to add on.
No, you guys said. I mean, you guys said it, and I'll be remiss about also mentioning 100 Strong. I know they do some great work with
Yep.
for that boys specifically, and also C Center for Young Black Professionals as well. When they
Yep.
was asking about careers versus jobs, I mean their one is very interesting in the sense that they look at where there are labor gaps, so they know where there are gaps within the labor market, and they provide um training and guidance for Black folks who are looking to get into those particular arenas. Um, I know film and production is one of them. Digital technology is one of them. Construction was one in the past. I'm not sure if it still is, but there's also things such as insurance as well. So it's not your typical industries that they're available to. It's ones that they research and they know there's number one, not only a short of like labor, but a short of labor in the Canadian economy in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Frequency Event Promotion says last two pieces. Please look up Dr. Kwanzaa Jufu. Yeah. And then Paul said, no, he also puts up final piece, read the book, Build It, Don't Talk. Also says, great, Paul, great question. I think we know what the answer is to this. It takes great work. I'm going to say great heart work, not just work, heart work and strategy with community and business focus on the ideas that go beyond lip service. 100%.
There you go. Frequency.
100%. Gentlemen.
This African proverb, I just want to kind of throw this out there, right? And it always spoke to me. And I think it's something that we need to look at. The African proverb that says, if it's something you can correct me if the first part of it, but it speaks about the fact that if the young man or young people don't feel the warmth, they'll burn down the village to feel the flames.
Yeah.
Right? So you
yeah. If a young man is not initiated into the village, they will burn it down just to feel its warmth.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yeah. So think of it in that sense, like what safe spaces are we creating for young men? And the fact that they're absent in a lot of cases, they're looking for that connection. It's the same connection that we were spoken about the Crips back in the day, speaking about the Panthers. Different groups that were affected was because they created safe spaces for young Black boys. So what safe spaces can you be part of creating and supporting? Tuggs, I tip my hat off to Tuggs because one of the things he did is he opened up his home. He said, I have this home, I have family, I have people that will care for the young people. So he opened up his home, and that's where rights started. And then we branched out to community. So think about how can you be part of something that opens up spaces where young people can feel that warmth so that they don't burn down the village, because that's the situation that we're presently faced with presently. How can you connect? And what can you bring to the table? But sometimes what bringing to the table could just be some hot food as well. You know, it might just be a domino pack. It might be a soccer ball. You know, what is it that you can bring that can create a safe space that young people can feel at home, and the building and the support can essentially launch itself from there. So,
well, as I always say, go ahead, Tuggs.
No, I was going to say something, and you know what? It goes on what Brother Kofi was saying as well. Sometimes you really can not appreciate what it is that you have. And you may not think what you have is enough or a lot, but it may be the one jewel that would help inspire a young person and take them to the next level. I remember there was one brother. I remember when I went to interview for one place, they said, what is the hardest young person you work with? And I remember the brother's name. I ain't gonna say it now, but I remember the brother's name. I said he was the hardest. And you know what? He wasn't the hardest because he was the most unwilling. He was the hardest because he was so entrenched in a negative world. I mean, deeply entrenched in a negative world that you could feel that negative demons that was in him. because I hadn't been that deep. I remember saying to my manager at the time that I don't think I'm the best person for him. I think he's best it best placed with one of our elders. It'd be better to work with him. But he didn't take me from him, so I stayed just working with him. And what was interesting is the level of turnaround that this young brother had was absolutely incredible. And then he'll talk about the impact that I had on him. And this was just through conversation. And one of the things he always mentioned, the fact that I called him a king, right? It's common amongst our circle just to refer to each other. Yeah, oh, hey there, king, you cool king? What's up, brother? You know what I mean? And he always remembers that. And that was like a hammer that was breaking down his previous programming. But it was like I didn't appreciate of all of the subconscious impact that I was having, that I was getting from my elders, and how when you translate it to other people who may not have an ounce of what the environment that you are used to, how much of an impact that may have on them going down the road. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So that's one jewel I definitely would give.
And on that note, I would say again, our words are power. Our conversations are power, right? We discussed on both ends, they could be the N word, and then you're calling a young man a king. And that sometimes flips our whole orientation because we're like, yo, king? Yo, nobody ever
Yeah.
called me king. They call me
Right.
everything else, right? So, me calling you a king may put you in a mindset of, boy, you know what? Maybe I have to act like a king. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm elevated that, right? So I think that that's important, and as gentlemen, that are older than some of our young men or young boys, I think we need to, surround them with those words of positivity, elevate them in many of the spaces that are not friendly to them, right? Many of the spaces that they don't want to be in, right? And I think that that's an important piece. And to maybe wrap the conversation. I know Dr. Vibe is going to take us out. Oh, there'll be more. I mean, this is our brother Tuggs. It's part of our family. So you see him now, but you're going to see him later. I guarantee. Right?
Yeah, well, you see, Tuggs is available to the top hour, but I'll cut it. I don't want to, but I know you other gentlemen probably have things to do. I could go on with him till the top of the hour, but I don't want to do it without you both.
Listen, Tuggs has some people he has to put to bed. I'm sure they're on the background.
Okay.
Daddy.
So Stephen says also sharing with each other what we learn, what we have the privilege to reason with those young people. Understanding the dynamics of young people today in today's context is important. So Tuggs, I want to get one last piece from you, or one or two quickly. What gives you hope for the future of Black boys, and what changes would you like to see in the next 10 years?
So what gives me hope is that I know that there are throughout wherever we are, there are always individuals who recognize the time that we're in and doing the works, right? The people who've been influenced by the generations before, and they recognize that there's a level of engagement that needs to happen. And just the fact that I believe that young people are seeking and they're looking and they have immense talent as well that just needs to be channeled and it just needs to be honed. And I think with like the jigsaw pieces, I see the jigsaw pieces all there. But the more these jigsaw pieces can be pushed together, the more that we'll find our answers to what we're looking at. So the fact that all of the jigsaw pieces are there, you do have committed men, you do have boys that are seeking. We do have boys that are seeking committed men. And once we now started to put those pieces together, I think we'll find a shift. And what was the second part?
Well, I said, what changes would you like to see in the next 10 years?
I would echo what Brother Sadat said to me. Was that the element of rites of passage should be seen like how the Boy Scouts were, right? In the sense that it should be something that all children of African descent have the opportunity in doing. And what I'd love to see is just a whole educational process centered around the rites of passage principles. And I'd also love to see more of the integration and discussion with Black folks around the planet a little bit more. Like the top European echelon, they're now looking to communicate with other worlds, right? Other worlds in different solar systems, and we still have issues speaking with each other in different countries, even though we're connected. Like that don't make sense. So it's like, how can we integrate ourselves as a as an African world population, so that someone in the States, someone in the Caribbean, someone in Africa, someone in Toronto, we can all learn from what's happening in our particular areas and find ways to build and develop stronger bonds.
Yeah, because I think we all have more in common than we really know.
100%, 100%, and we always seem to focus on what
We
separates us
don't.
rather than what
Yeah,
brings us together. So yeah.
100%. One last thing, if you could share one key message with Black boys around the world, what would it be?
One key thing that, to be honest, is like when we look at the the journey of Black folks in the West, it's been a horrible journey, and we have prayed for a time that we could exist in the world and have the opportunity to be our best selves, right? You are the prayer that our elders called into existence, and they have the environment. We now have the environment to manifest their desires. We just need to be in tune and connected and understand that there's a purpose that they need to fulfill that is currently being unfulfilled.
Great way to end it off. Fantastic. Well, Brother Tuggs, thank you for coming back from England to hang out with us. Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
No
I'd say the
problem.
last time we saw each other was at a food celebration.
Yes, indeed.
Wow.
Yes.
But
Wow.
yo, Dr. Vibes, I have to pick you up, Dr. Vibes. Is like, before podcast become a thing, there was a Dr. Vibes show. So you were ahead,
We're
you
all
were ahead
okay.
of,
We're
ahead of
all
your time,
together.
man.
I'm glad. Look, I received that, but I'm glad that we're all in this together, whether it's digitally, face to face, city wise, provincial wise, nationally, internationally. We're all in this together. It's not over until we win.
100%, man. And I just want to obviously give testimony to Brother Sadat as well. Like he's really mentored and been a guide to me integrating with the Black community in Toronto in a way. And I remember when I first came over, he said, "Listen, get the car. I'm giving you, we're going on a ride along." And he took me to all of the spots and connected me with some of the main peoples and individuals. You know what I mean? So that was an invaluable an invaluable experience that enabled me to start working as a volunteer. Where I met Brother Kofi.
And there you go.
There you go.
Yes. Redemptionary integration services as well. So big up Brother Kofi, man, because I know you've been dedicated in this mission as well. You know what I mean, so
Full
Excellent.
circle. Full circle.
Full
It's a full
circle.
circle.
yes,
Well,
indeed,
we want to thank
indeed,
you for
indeed.
taking the most important thing, your time to hang out with us. And as always, if there's anything we can potentially do to help out, you know how to get a hold of us. And as always, I would say, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. And if you're not making money, make history.
That's it.
Thank you, my brother. Keep the faith.
All right.
All right. Man, we have to do a part 2 with him. We have to do a like that. No, there was so much stuff. Like, man, I just felt like I spoke with Professor Tuggs, not just Tuggs.
Yeah,
That's
that
it.
name. Listen, that name's gonna stick with him now. You know, he's now known as the professor. So
The professor, yes, the
that's the
professor.
new name, the professor.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, any final thoughts before we close the conversation down today?
Yeah, I would like to start. I definitely wanted to kind of build off what Brother Kofi was saying in terms of getting involved in organizations and putting a challenge out to the listeners. So My challenge is for you to volunteer, find an organization that works with young Black boys or supports their family, and make that your mission this year, that you're going to give your time, you're going to give your energy, and you're going to contribute to the development of, a young Black man this year. So, and I also will do the same as well, right? Do what I'm asking you to do. But yeah, put the challenge out there, and let us know. Come back, let us know, what you've been doing. So thank you very much, everybody, for holding space today in an important conversation.
100%.
Brother Kofi?
A couple of things. One of the things that there's so much when it comes to rites of passage that we didn't, you can't explore in an hour and a half call. But a couple of other things are traditional healing practices and the importance of going back, utilizing the term Sankofa, which is a fictitious bird that essentially looks back to fetch an egg from its back. And it's the concept of, it's actually a Dinka symbol, which are ancient symbols that are often, explored during rites of passage. But just thinking of the importance of digging and going backwards in order for us to move forward, and recognizing that there's healing that has to take place. There we go. Paul's holding it right there. So there's healing that must take place within our community, and it often starts with the inner child. So a lot of us have actual inner child work to be done, and as a result, we have people that are walking around that look grown, that look adult-like, but internally there's some development that hasn't taken place. So rites of passage is one of those things that allows you to develop what's happening internally, be able to look within in order to examine what's happening in your environment. And that's a lot of what it did for us on our journey. So definitely dig a little bit deeper with regards to some of the things you're experiencing and challenges you might be experiencing as a man, and recognizing that there may be some internal work that needs to be done, and we need to get to the point where we're now normalizing healing in our community as Black men. So I'm thankful to be part of today's conversation, as it's another step in the direction of healing for our community, going back to traditional practices that have worked, that have been proven to work with the self-transformation of young people in our community to become healthy individuals, because it doesn't just take a village, but it takes a healthy village to raise healthy children. So we're on that journey. I'm thankful. Dr. Vibe, thank you for creating the space once again. Black Man Can Talk, Black Man Will Talk, Black Man Talking.
And they do talk. I'll just end off really quick here. Black men, don't underestimate your lived experience. And we all need to do the work, but don't have that hold you back to share your story with a young Black man, because they need us. They need us even more than ever. So I just want to put it out there that I believe that almost everyone has $100,000 story. Just most people don't want to share it. So let's share our story with a young Black man. And even though share with other Black men, young, old, other Black men, just share. And if you don't have children of your own, find some to share it with. I'm sure you have a relative, a young youth relative, a male in your family. Share it. So before we close down, just show results of the poll. Are you concerned about the future of Black boys? 89% of the respondents said yes, they are. So even more so.
Yes.
Even more so. So before we close it down, if you want to get a hold of Kofi Sadat, email address is there. Instagram is there. YouTube is there. Facebook is there. Kofi Morris, email address is there. Both his Instagram. 2 Instagram accounts. Wow. Wow. How many do you have on TikTok? I won't ask. There we go. And then
Coach on TikTok.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Website. There's all the contact information there on most of the platforms you're watching this live and replay. It's there. And of course, here's Tuggs information also. So that's it. You can watch replays of this epic conversation on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Also, the Dr. Vibe Show website, the drvibeshow.com. Paul Osbourne on Facebook, and NASA Community on YouTube. So it's all covered. So as we shut down, we do live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you need to get smaller, get stronger, block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider, love, faith, and respect. And don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourselves grace. And if you're not making money, make history. And we will get Tuggs back because I need to have him back. And I think everyone else here does. Be well and keep the faith.